everybody. I want to welcome you to the Inspire Youth Laureate Cross Country Tour. My name is Suzette Maya, and I'm Cree, Coasalish, Niska, and Kwakwakiwak, and I'm here from Vancouver. So I'm really excited to be here. Yes. Some of you may know me from a TV show called Big Brother Canada. How many people have seen that show? All right. Yeah. So, and I produce a radio show in Vancouver called Think Indian, and promoting Indigenous pop cultural artists. So I'm really blessed and honored to be here. And I'll be your MC today. We're going to have a lot of fun. I feel like after this, we're going to know each other, and you're going to meet some amazing panelists. So we would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the land of the Treaty 6 territory, the traditional territory of the Cree peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to our elder. She's born in Two Hills, Alberta, and raised on Saddle Lake Indian Reserve. Her name given, Louise, but she is also known by her Cree name, Sky Dancer. At age 7, Louise was forced to attend Blue Quills Residential School in St. Paul's, Alberta. Louise graduated from the University of Regina with a Bachelor of Social Work and was given an honorary PhD of Letters from Wilfrid Laurier in 2012. Louise has won many prestigious awards as an independent Canadian author and poet.
Greetings, all of you, to the dignitaries and to Laureates and President Stoichkov, staff and students. Kanaskum now agakio hepesit skoa gekogek uskayak. Metuna miweten aya higo epewa bataman miwa atsun. I'm deeply grateful for this life that we've been given, for the accomplishments of the laureates. I was asked one day, what's a laureate? I bet somebody in the crowd knows. What's a laureate? Well, I was asked that because I served as a poet laureate of the province for 2 years, and I was actually a little bit embarrassed to reply to it, and I said, well, it's like, to simplify it, you're the cream of the crop. So these people here who are with us today are the cream of the crop. They've been chosen nationally, and I'm really proud of them. But I'm going to just say this. Now, you don't normally write my prayer, but this is my prayer today. Traveling across the country wearing a war bonnet, the spirit of our ancestors are drumming, singing, and stomping, encouraging and celebrating you. They tell you as you shake in your bones that you are not alone. I think in this journey you have found your backbone has been held by your family, by your friends, and your community. And we are proud to see you stand tall in the midst of any adversities that you face. You have come through. Our youth, we need you. I dreamt once that I may stand tall among and that I may stand tall among and instill dreaming the vision of community well-being. That's a little bit awkward, but you know what I mean. I'm still hoping that our communities will become healthier as we struggle on this wayward path. I found that the guardians have not failed me, that all I needed to do was lay out my tobacco and pray. Hence, I ask the great mystery, the parent of all of us, to bless us with gentleness of the wind, the warmth of the sun, and the flow of the river. May we walk softly with strength and will to find not only our answers about ourselves, but to give others to this gift of self-determination. Eksan ganaskum nawaw ebetu te anu tanista hepe bixkoyan. I ask a great mystery to pity us as we walk on this long journey of the crooked road, and may we lift our prayers and our songs and our dances towards community and universal healing. Thank you.
So did you know that you all you here, we're the fastest growing population in Canada. of everyone under 25. So there's so much opportunities for our peoples out there. And Inspire, they have so many amazing programs and ways that they can help for funding for post-secondary education. So it's just so wonderful that we are on tour. And you guys are, we have quite a diverse group here. Some are in different grades in elementary and high school, university. So this is an opportunity at any age to be inspired. And you're going to hear some amazing stories from these amazing laureates. They've achieved so much, and they have, are just great role models. And I'm really excited to hear their stories as well. They're truly outstanding, and you're going to see why. And this is an opportunity for you to think about some questions, because some of them you may be able to relate to and think of their stories and how you can be inspired. Inspire is an Indigenous-led charity that invests in education of Indigenous people for long-term benefits of these individuals, their families, and communities. The Government of Canada had planned thousands of events across Canada to celebrate Canada 150, the anniversary of Confederation. So Inspire was selected to participate as a unique charity focused on Indigenous education. Every year, Inspire celebrates Indigenous achievements by organizing the Inspire Awards, which includes First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Youth Laureates. So today we'll showcase 3 amazing youth laureates as they talk about the importance of a solid education and how Inspire supports students' dreams for a brighter future, which is really cool because while you're sitting there, you can envision your own future. These role models should inspire all of you guys to dream big. So we're going to start with Fauna, who is a Manitoba Métis raised in Iqaluit, Nunavut. In 2006, Fauna obtained her Bachelor of Commerce degree with a distinction from the University of Manitoba. She's also earned a Master of Professional Accounting degree from the University of Saskatchewan. And a Chartered Accountant designation. Fauna was the only Indigenous Chartered Accountant in 2009 graduating class and is one of few Indigenous Chartered Professional Accountants in Canada. She earned her Certified Aboriginal Financial Manager designation, and Fauna is currently the Chief Financial Officer for Fisher River Cree Nation and now has come full circle to help Inspire again, and she is now on the board of directors. Andrea Dijkstra. Andrea is Mi'kmaq from Black Point, Nova Scotia, and lives in Ottawa. Andrea is a senior advisor in the Lands and Economic Development sector of the Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada and has held many positions in the National Aboriginal Economic Development Board Secretariat, Transport Canada, and Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada. Andrea is a committed volunteer and has advocated for Indigenous women's participation in science and technology careers. She has also served as a mentor in the River to Success program at Inspire and is actively working in her department to increase Indigenous recruitment, retention, and representation at all occupational levels. In 2006, Andrea was a recipient of the Inspire Award in the youth category. Josh Butcher. Some of you may have seen him in social media recently. Josh attended Austin O'Brien High School in Edmonton, Alberta, and extracurricular activities include football, a jazz band, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, the Edmonton Christmas Bureau, where he continues to volunteer. And Josh enrolled at the University of Alberta and played for the Edmonton Huskies, then traveled to Saskatoon where he tried out and walked on to the University of Saskatchewan Huskies football team. During his first 3 years here, Josh studied in the College of Kinesiology where he made the honor roll annually with a 4.0 GPA. Josh has shown dedication to and has advocated for both children with disabilities and the LGBTQ2 athletes. In 2014, Josh was accepted with the College of Medicine here at the University of Saskatchewan, and Josh is the 2017 Youth Métis Inspire Award recipient. Give a round of applause to these amazing laureates. Yay! I gotta catch my breath. I got all excited down there and then came up the stairs. But we're comfy now. Okay, so we're just gonna fly out. Fauna, I've read all your bios now. Now we can get a little bit more in depth, right? So what was it like as a Métis girl from Manitoba growing up in Iqaluit?
Yeah, so my parents are both from Manitoba, and my mom is from northern Manitoba, and she comes from a very large Cree Ojibwe family. So she comes from a family of 17 siblings, all from the same parents. So my grandparents had 17 kids, so a huge family. And we actually, when I was 4 years old, we moved from Manitoba to Iqaluit, Nunavut, or what is now Iqaluit, Nunavut. And for the longest time, because all my friends, you just kind of hang out with everyone when you're like a little kid, and all my friends were Inuit. And so we spoke Inuktitut, we hung out together, we did everything together, and I knew I was Native, and I just assumed I was Inuit. So when somebody told me otherwise, I was very surprised. So I went home and asked my mom, okay, so apparently I'm not Inuk, and I'm something else. And she had to explain to me, no, there's three types of Aboriginal people. There's Inuit, which is mostly here, and then there's First Nation, there's Métis, and you're Métis. And my response apparently was, when? When did this happen? Because I was raised thinking I was Inuk, and so it was definitely an identity crisis at 8 years old, thinking you're something and realizing you're not. So I always knew I was Native, just didn't know what kind. And eventually, when I started thinking about my post-secondary education and what I wanted to do, Nunavut is unique in that you have to leave the entire territory to go to university. So a lot of kids are raised knowing that at 17 or 18, you have to leave your family, your friends, your school, your town, your territory to go to university. So knowing that, I think you're always trying to prepare yourself, but you never quite can. And that's why I chose University of Manitoba and later on University of Saskatchewan, because I wanted to connect specifically with my Métis heritage, and those schools allowed me to do that.
Well, quickly, how did you go about learning about your Métis culture?
Well, again, knowing that there's a lot of similarities between the Indigenous groups, but definitely just asking my mom questions. And, obviously my family is Métis, and so just kind of learning from them. And my grandpa was a fisherman, and so he raised 17 kids being a fisherman. And he spoke 4 languages. He spoke English, French, Ojibwe, and Cree. He couldn't read or write. So just learning things like that, just like where you come from, and thinking, okay, like this is inspiring, and I can do something with my life. So just kind of learning about that, and then just pursuing Aboriginal groups on campus was a big thing for me too.
Andrea, hey. As a young Mi'kmaq girl growing up in Nova Scotia, who did you look for inspiration?
So I'm from a very, very small place in Nova Scotia. I know that there's some people here who are from out of town, but where I'm from, the community that I'm from, where I lived, had about 100 people, maybe, and that was only in the summer. So I was from a very, very small place, and just like any other kid, just like so many of you here have been asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, where do you look for inspiration? So the first places that I looked for inspiration were my family, like my mother and my father and my aunties and my uncles. And when I looked to them, I saw people who were really involved in their community. They were committed volunteers. They wanted to make the world around them a better place, but none of them had gone to university. Like my father's a carpenter. My mother was a stay-at-home mom at the time. So I didn't really have anybody to talk to about going to university and what my options were. So you're kind of in a funny place where you don't have a blueprint to follow. You don't have somebody in your family, somebody who's close to you that you can look to. But at the same time, the sky is the limit. Like, because there's nobody around you to kind of like say, oh, you should be a doctor, or you should be a firefighter, or you should be an engineer. I had this wonderful opportunity to think that I could be anything. So when I was about 17 years old, I went to one of the career fairs that you heard about earlier. It was called Blueprint for the Future at the time, but they're now called Soaring. And it was there that I started to see Indigenous people who were in these amazing fields, people who were in science, people who were in medicine. Like, I was the very first person from my First Nation to get a science degree. I didn't have anybody to talk to at home about that. But through Indspire, I was able to see that there were Indigenous doctors, there were Indigenous scientists, and there were Indigenous engineers. So I think that because my family, like they told me, they gave me that kind of inspiration to go out there and to learn more about my community and get involved in this organization called Indspire to learn things. Because they were so involved in the community at the time, it kind of gave me the confidence to go out and get more information and learn about what I could do with my life.
Thank you for that. Yes, you can clap anytime, you know? Thank you for sharing that. And it's great that you shared that it was at the Soaring you were inspired in seeing other people. And you mentioned doctors. This one's for Josh. 10% of the positions available in the medical doctor degree program here at the University of Saskatchewan are specifically for Indigenous students. So why do you think it's important to have that space and important to have Indigenous people in the medical field?
This on? Yeah. No, yeah, so that's huge. And like, I guess, first of all, before I answer your question, thank you everybody for being here. If you guys do come up with any questions throughout, just try and remember them, and hopefully you get a chance to ask them at the end. That'd be sweet. Yeah, so I guess in regards to the 10 seats that we have in the College of Medicine, so that's been super huge. It's for all of the Indigenous applicants to the College of Medicine. The way it works is you end up applying, and you apply, and you get put into the regular pool, and you measure up against all the competition. If you aren't, I guess, fortunate enough to be accepted through that pool, they reserve those 10 seats for Indigenous students. So that means if you're interested in medicine as a career, and if you're interested in becoming a doctor, a surgeon, you can do and all the subspecialties of that. Like, I don't know what you guys are into, but if you're into like neurosurgery, where you're doing surgery on brains, tiny little surgeries, or another thing I'm kind of interested in is orthopedic surgery, where you're fixing up bones and stuff. So I don't know, you see clips on YouTube of an athlete who's going, they're running, and somebody like smashes into the side of their leg, and their bone snaps, and it's sticking out of their leg. Somebody's got to fix it. So that's what those guys are going to do. But yeah, having those 10 seats is awesome because it gives Indigenous students an opportunity, especially when, as Indigenous peoples, we've had so many other obstacles in life, right? We've had to fight through a lot more because of our unfortunate histories, I suppose. So I guess it gives a greater point of equity for those students to, if we have a chance at becoming physicians. And then on top of that, we have such a huge need for Indigenous physicians, and not only in this province, but across the country. We're always, and even like having just rural family physicians going out and working in those areas. And I think that's part of the purpose and part of the reason we have that in place is hopefully some of those docs. And if we do have kids that are applying from rural places, they're going back to those communities and giving back and able to provide care for those people where, right there or right now, there may not be adequate resources. And we see in the news, and it seems like so often we see in the news something else happening in these communities, and I can't help but feel like a lot of that could be prevented if we have adequate access to healthcare, like mental health resources. Like that's so huge, as I'm sure a lot of you know. So and it's hard, and especially you're like at that age, you're going through so much, and I get like bullying and all that stuff. It sucks, and you wish that it wasn't there. And it's just a tough. I think it's a tough point in everybody's life, and everybody goes through that. I guess those kind of teenage years, and going through depression and all of that. But I just wish that everybody could have those mental health resources, and I wish that we could bring that to those communities. So having those seats in the college, it extends beyond getting those students into the College of Medicine. It's actually going back and providing care to those communities. So
Thank you, Josh. You know, up here on this panel, we have laureates that are in completely different fields, and these are fields that are underrepresented, and it's so wonderful that you're all here because you are sharing your personal stories and your passion for the fields that you're in, because we do need more Indigenous people as chartered accountants, in sciences, and in medicine. So thank you so much. You know, I think that what you guys are doing is really contributing in something that we need more Indigenous students being a part of. Fauna, what were the biggest challenges moving to Winnipeg? Because now to begin your university, you know, when some of you are in high school, elementary, you're thinking about your future. What are some of those challenges, and how did you come about thinking about the University of Manitoba?
Well, like I said, in Nunavut, you have to leave. So you're kind of raised with that expectation of, okay, if I pursue this, then it means this. So in my situation, I knew I wanted to go to university. I was kind of an odd kid. At like 8 years old, I decided I wanted to be an accountant. Don't ask me why, just one of those things. I was like, okay, I'm going to be an accountant. I liked math, so I just decided that. And so I always knew on what I wanted to be. And so, and it was always kind of instilled in me from my parents. I was the first one in my family. In my entire mom's family of 17 kids, I was the only one to get a university education. So that's like a huge deal in my family. And so I think with that encouragement, it was always kind of enforced that I would be going to university, but it wasn't overwhelming until it kind of happened. And when I kind of thought about it, the scope of it, because University of Manitoba at that time had a student population of 30,000 people. The entire territory of Nunavut, which is 1/5 of Canada's landmass, only has 30,000 people. So it was basically like moving my entire territory into a university. And so when you think about it like that, it can be quite overwhelming and daunting. But I think it was about developing my own network and reaching out for help and not being shy, going out meeting people, you know, kind of developing your own kind of mini support network at university. So I approached Aboriginal resources, Aboriginal business programs, specific to people that could relate to my situation and my stories. A lot of us from Indigenous populations are from very small, remote locations, and the urban setting can be very overwhelming. And I know a lot of people who it was too stressful. So they either had to take time off and go back home and just kind of recenter. And some of them tried again, some of them didn't. And that's just a reality. It can be quite overwhelming living in a city. And even just, you know, little things like when you come down from Nunavut, you shop, you bulk up, you shop a lot and you take everything up because it has to last you, you know, your wardrobe has to last you a year. And so it was kind of coming down here and just not acting like it was like my room was a bunker and not stocking up for a whole year. Just being like, I can go to the grocery store and get one thing of milk. I don't have to get 10. So it sounds silly, but your mindset is completely different when you're raised in a remote, isolated community than when you're urban. So definitely it was just about transitioning and learning and learning to ask for help, and just asking different organizations that you relate to.
Well, I think that's a really important thing that you brought up, because asking for help, it can be intimidating when you're thinking about the next journey, going into university. And Andrea, I believe that you are also the very first person in your family to go to university, right? And I'm sure it comes with some challenges when you're, you know, leaving home and you don't have those role models who can talk to you about university life. What supports, Andrea, did you think that could have been available, or what was available to you when initially you didn't really have that guidance of family members who had gone to university?
So for me, I don't come from as large of a family as you do.
Nobody does.
But I knew that I had like that kind of psychological support of my family. Like everybody from the community and my family was really proud. And a lot of you sitting here today are starting to think about, where is it that I want to go after I graduate high school? Like, what is it that I want to do? And know that your family and your loved ones in your community will always be there to give you that kind of emotional support. But in addition to emotional support, something that I could have really used and I didn't have as much of that you guys will be able to benefit from today, is that the Aboriginal Student Association at my university was really quite brand new when I went to school. So there was like a little bit of like, there was a resource room. You could go there between classes, and there was a microwave, and you could have snacks and meet with other Aboriginal students. But the difference between, I'm scared to admit this now, 1999 and now, is that every single university in Canada, regardless of where you choose to study, whether it's the University of Saskatchewan, where we are today, or St. Francis Xavier University, where I went in Nova Scotia, every single university has an Aboriginal Student Association and Aboriginal student supports. Now that varies, but every single one does. So when you go to university, you will absolutely not be alone. You will absolutely have a place to celebrate and practice your culture. You'll have a place that's going to feel a little bit more like home. Like when I went away, like the university I went to wasn't that far from where I was, and I certainly didn't go to a school that had 30,000 people. My school had 4,000 people in 1999. It has more than that now. But I was only an hour away from home. So I could just hop on the bus and hang out with my family for the weekend if I needed that support. But times have changed. Like that's almost 20 years ago. And the great thing about you guys sitting here today is that you are not only emotionally and culturally supported at every university in Canada, there are very specific programs now available to you to support your educational journey. So I encourage you to avail yourself of that information and know that if you choose to take those first steps into that post-secondary world, that you're going to be well supported.
I like that. That's right. Yeah. I mean, even you can see here at the University of Saskatchewan how they have such a big commitment to Indigenous students. So I really love that, and it's so wonderful to see that evolution. Josh, as a Métis person reclaiming your culture, what have you learned about yourself in this process of getting to know your culture, and how has it made your life better? And just think about what the journey's been like.
Yeah, so for me, growing up, I don't know, I always knew that I was Métis, but I never really actually kind of knew what that meant. And I didn't really know what it meant to other people, I guess, at first, and I think I soon kind of started to find out. And I guess before that, like the only real like cultural practices I really had growing up was like on my dad's side, so that's where I'm Métis. Whenever I got together with that side of our family, we would get together for meals. We're a big family in number and in individual size. We'd always get together for meals and basically like we'd get together in a circle, gather hands, and we would give thanks to the Creator. And outside of that, like literally, I had no other like real like cultural practices, I felt like. And so I never really had a strong sense of what it meant to be Métis. And yeah, so I guess growing up in schools, though, I just remember sometimes hearing, I guess, racist comments, like really in like daily conversations, you know, and not having an idea of what it meant to be Métis, I started to almost think that, oh, like that's associated with being Métis, like whatever stereotype it was that I was hearing, like, oh, that must be what it is. Like, I just didn't really know, right? And so, but at the same time, I knew that I was none of those things, right? I guess, just for example purposes, like one stereotype you'd often hear would be something about alcohol, right? I knew that I was obviously none of those stereotypes, and I knew that none of my parents, none of them were like either of them were. What am I trying to say? They didn't fit those stereotypes neither, right? So it just didn't make sense, and so naturally, I didn't really identify with, I guess, those comments that I had heard, you know. So growing up, I don't know. I feel like I lived like a fairly regular childhood. I didn't think that I had a ton of, I guess, hardships at first. Looking back, though, I really tried to almost hide the fact that I was Métis from my friends and people around me because I thought that they would judge me, or that I thought that they would, you know, think less of me or something because I was Métis, you know. And I look back now and just realize how that kind of impacted just the course of like my future and my process growing up. It wasn't until probably high school when I actually had to like start thinking about university, right? As I'm sure a lot of you kind of are thinking about what you want to do, what you're going to take. You have to start thinking about how you're going to financially support yourself, because university is expensive. It sucks. And somebody's got to pay for it. So it's always helpful if you can find ways to be able to pay for that, right? So naturally, I started trying to apply for scholarships, and because I was eligible for them, I started applying for some of the Métis scholarships. One question that I find that's very, very commonly asked in those scholarships is, what is your connection to the Indigenous community? For me, it was just kind of like, I don't know, like I felt like I didn't have one, and that sucked because I knew that I was Métis, so I kind of feel, you start to feel guilty almost, right? Because I knew I was Métis, I'm applying for these scholarships, I don't have this connection, what am I supposed to do? So I start saying, you know, like when I'm with my family, we give thanks to the Creator, and like that was like the extent that I could go into on that, you know? So I kind of, that was the start of a kind of what began like a process of like guilt that I started to feel in applying for scholarships through every year of university. And I was fortunate enough to be offered some of those scholarships. So I'd accept them, of course, and they're helpful because they help me to get through school. But I continue to feel like very, very guilty about that, you know? And so because of it though too, I tried to start like pursuing like volunteer opportunities to be able to gain a connection. So one here in the city of Saskatoon is we have a medical clinic called Switch. It's the Student Wellness Initiative Towards Community Health. And it's kind of over on the west side. And like that's a really awesome like clinic. They really try to base it around Indigenous culture, and I know they smudge at the beginning of every shift. And I thought that was really sweet, and that was like one way I was able to kind of start gaining a little bit more of a Indigenous connection. So it's kind of that, and I guess just even going through university here and getting into the College of Medicine, which has been awesome. I feel like I've had really great resources in the college. We have an Aboriginal coordinator named Val, who's actually here today. She's sitting right there. She's wearing kind of turquoise. She is so awesome. That's her with her hand up. I go in and like chat with her all the time, and we just talk about like, I don't know, like any like issue, like whether it's like reconciliation and what it means to different Canadians. We've talked about residential schools. We talked about 60 Scoop. We've talked about like all these like day schools, which I didn't even know was a thing until Val told me. You know, I just feel like I'm always trying to like gain a little bit and like learn a little bit more about my culture, and that helps me to understand like, you know, where I came from and why. It's also helped me to learn why I don't know a lot about my culture.
It sounds like that throughout your life, you know, you can learn about your culture at any age. And it seems like through your journey, through education and within the community, you've been to reclaim your identity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you want me to keep going? Or
well, no, and
I can talk all day. You guys got to tell me when to shut up.
We do have other laureates up here, and I love this. But it sounds like the school, too, has also facilitated a lot of that, you know, and even for young people, we do want to acknowledge that not everyone in this room is Indigenous, Aboriginal, and we do have people from other nationalities and cultures here, and people can learn their culture or be a part of it at any age. And I think that you sharing your journey has also, you know, maybe inspire other people to learn a bit about their culture as well. I need to move on, but also Fauna, you know, as you were going to university too, you were talking about some resources, how coming from your community to the university. What kind of resources were available that helped facilitate, you know, going to a big institution from such a small community?
Well, I was 17 when I graduated and moved down to Winnipeg. So I chose to live in residence because there's a lot of like-minded, you know, everyone basically is from out of town. That's why you're in residence. So there was, you know, thousands of people that you basically meet through different networking opportunities within the residence. And obviously you live together, so you see each other all the time. So that was one great way to kind of feel not so alone. And then there was specifically the Aboriginal Business Education Partners. And so that was a program aimed at Indigenous professionals looking at business degrees in commerce. And then I did kind of look at generally at the University of Manitoba, but I just kind of felt like more of an affinity with the business education partners. So I did become a partner with a member within them. And then I was co-creator of the Aboriginal Commerce Students Association so that we could have more presence within commerce.
So cool. Also, Andrea, because I think that you guys are both like groundbreaking women in fields that are so different, but yet, you know, at St. Francis Xavier University, you discovered you were the only Indigenous person, not only in the biology program, but the entire Faculty of Science. That's pretty amazing. How did that shape your university experience?
So I just want to pick up on something that Josh was talking about, and like feeling pride in your culture. Like when you look at me, all you see is my Dutch heritage. My father is Dutch and my mother is First Nation. So at first glance, you just see a giant 6-foot Dutch woman. So like carrying the mantle of being the only Indigenous person in the Faculty of Science at my university, it was weird for me because I didn't look like what people expected an Indigenous person to be. So that was weird, and I had to explain a lot that I was in fact Indigenous. There's 4 siblings in my family. I'm the oldest. The youngest is a ginger, just like me, and the 2 middle ones are as brown as the day is long. So we have this crazy distribution of looks in our family, but knowing that I didn't look Indigenous made it difficult for me to be the only person in my program. But at the same time, it filled me with this tremendous sense of responsibility that I was the first, and I had to represent Indigenous people well. And that I was going to be looked at with more scrutiny than my classmates, and that certainly was the case. But the cool thing about it is that the second student in the Faculty of Science was my sister. So she saw me take that step and say, you know what, yeah, this is scary, this is terrifying. I'm the first Indigenous person in the biology program, first Indigenous person in the Faculty of Science. But she's like, you know what? I can do it too. And she did. And she ended up getting her master's at the University of Stirling in Scotland because of that example. And she's going to be going for her PhD pretty soon. And there's other people from our community who have studied science as well. So like you may be thinking about, hey, I'm thinking about what I'm going to study in school, but nobody else in my community has done that before. That's okay. It's actually kind of awesome. It's a really awesome place to be in because you get to be the first, and you get to be the example, and you get to tell your story to other young people in your community, and you get to tell them that they can do it too. So I was really proud to have been the first person in the Faculty of Science, and I'm happy to say I wasn't the last.
So cool. Yes. Give a round of applause. I know that these laureates have so many stories and their journey and things to share. And while they were sharing, there's opportunity for you all to answer more specific questions because as you're listening, you're like, oh, maybe I'd like to learn more about this. But I do have some general questions. And then after that, we'll open the floor. But this is open to any one of you, but I know that Josh, you're sort of the second on my radar here. But what role did Inspire play in shaping your education and just in general, how's Inspire been a part of your life?
Yeah, so there, and I should explain, so there is like the National Inspire Award, I suppose, which we were all recipients of at one point, but there's also the Inspire Scholarship and Bursary Program, and so that's something that I have been applying for, I think, every year for the last 5 years, and it's been really awesome, especially, so I'm from Edmonton, of course, and I'm living away from home, so as you can imagine, that's quite expensive, right? I'm paying for my own place, like for rent, my own food. I've been paying for all my tuition and everything as well, but I've been lucky that I've been able to apply and have received scholarship money to help pay for a lot of that. So Inspire has really, really helped me with that. On top of it, because I've been doing school and football at the same time, that is a decently large time commitment, and being with the Huskies and everything. Hey Andrea, I see you. That's Andrea. She was our equipment manager actually with the Huskies. She helped me a lot also through the last few years. So being able to apply for that and have that money, it's allowed me to, not have to stress about having to work while going to school and playing football. So anybody in this room right here, right now, who is Indigenous and is planning on doing post-secondary school, so school after high school, which should be all of you, you better apply to the Inspire bursaries. It would be very, very not smart for you to not. Do it. Do it. Apply for it, you guys. It's there to help you. It's honestly, it's free money to help you go to school. It's so clutch. Do it, okay? Okay, I've gotten that point across now. So yeah, obviously it's been a tremendous help to me.
Yes, anyone else would like to take on how Inspire has been a part of your journey?
So I've had a very long journey with them. So I got their bursary. So the bursary is aimed at high school students, so a lot of you. And so their bursary is, I got that in grade 11 and again in grade 12. And then I got funding throughout my undergrad at the University of Manitoba. So I think they funded me every year for my undergrad. And then they also funded me here for my master's in professional accounting. And then I won the Inspire Award, so that's another help financially. And I spoke at the soaring conferences. I've been on the jury for the scholarships and also the Achievement Awards. I presented at the Achievement Awards, and now I'm on the board of directors for Inspire. I'm the youngest female on that board. So it's really come full circle. I've been involved with them for the longest time, the longest relationship I think I've had, besides my family. So really, these people have seen me since I was 15 in Iqaluit, now being on the board of directors, being a young professional. So they've really seen me full circle. And what I do want to kind of emphasize is when you are applying for scholarships, you do have to kind of be honest about your circumstances, because they can't help you if they don't know what your struggles are. And sometimes it can be difficult to articulate that, especially to basically you don't know who's going to see it. But you really do have to be honest with your struggles. For me, for instance, I not only came from Nunavut, which is isolating and obviously expensive to move, I also had family addictions in my family. So just kind of being raised in that environment, you do have to kind of articulate that and say, this is a challenge for me. This is something that I've gone through as a child, and now dealing with some effects in my family. So you do have to kind of be honest about that. And just kind of don't be afraid to promote yourself, because nobody's going to do it for you. So when you're applying for scholarships, you have to stand out, because there's going to be hundreds of people who just like you who are wanting some help for education. So you do kind of have to say, you know what, I'm different because of this. I'm passionate about this. I tried really hard in this. And it is not about grades. It is not about who has the highest GPA. It is about, are you a well-rounded person? Are you trying in your community to be involved? Are you passionate about something? Are you good at sports? Are you in politics? It's very wide-ranging, and I can tell you from being on the jury, it's about those people who you can tell are passionate about what they're doing.
I just want to ask a quick question. This will be the last question from me, because we want to turn it over to the audience. But Andrea, what is your key message to the audience here today?
So I want all of you here to remember that nearly 20 years ago, I was sitting where you're sitting now. So think about that. So you're thinking about, what is it that I want to do? What do I want to be when I grow up? Where do I want to go to school? I asked myself the exact same questions. So when you're thinking about, oh, I'm looking at these laureates and they've done all of this stuff. Well, I was you 20 years ago. And this is where I am now. I'm a published scientist. I was in federal politics. I've been on national boards. I've gotten the Youth Award, just like the other people to my right and left here. And I work for the federal government. I've had some amazing experiences, and it all started in a room like this. So I went to an Indspire career fair called Blueprint for the Future in 1997, and that's when that first seed got planted, that I could be something more than I was, that I could do something more than anybody in my family had ever done before. And it started there. It started in a room like this, sitting where you are sitting right now. So think about that. Take that home with you. Because it doesn't matter if you're from a small place. I'm from nowhere, Nova Scotia. Really tiny places. Nobody had done much of anything. And I've been able to achieve all kinds of things with the support of Inspire, with the inspiration that I got from seeing other role models standing before me, hearing their journeys, seeing that they have gone out and done what seemed to be impossible from where I had sat at 16 years old. So know that if you want to take that step into the impossible, then this organization is going to be here for you. There's going to be people here who are going to help you financially. There's going to be people here to be giving you the inspiration that you need, and know that you're not alone in that journey. So that's what I want you to remember, that 20 years ago, I was you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, you can clap. All right. Yeah. Fauna, Josh, Andrea, thank you so much for sharing your inspirational journey. We just got a small window of all their success and their journey, but this is a time if something just popped out at you, you can ask my question. I want to thank you. You know, this is an opportunity for you to dream big and think about your future. And thanks for about the kind words about Inspire and how they've supported you. At this time, we'd like to make sure that we have, I believe Dawn is here. One of our, Dawn. You know, we have these great hats. Now it's sunny out there. And if any one of you would like to ask a question, she's here. We'll give you a hat. There's a microphone right there. If there's something you would like to ask any of the laureates, now's your chance. So who's going to start it off? Now, remember when we came in? And, oh, there we go. We got a question. Do you have a microphone? Oh, can I use one of your? Okay. Yeah, perfect. All right, we got a first question here on our left here, Dawn. Woohoo! Thank you, and I love that you're so brave and so confident. It's awesome. Yes.
I was wondering, like, all of you guys, how long it took you to get out of university, like how many years? Yeah.
Yeah. So I right now am in my 7th year of university. I know, like it sounds. I know. I see somebody who's like, "What?" Like I know it sounds. It sounds like bad because you're like, "Oh, you finished your grade 12. It's 12 whole years." And it's like I got to do that all again. No, it's honestly it doesn't feel like it's that long. It honestly flies by because you're having a blast. After high school, I don't know. Like maybe you move out. Like life's a bit different, you know. You're a little bit more in charge of how you run things, and hopefully you make good choices to do that. Like, you know, in doing that, but it flies by. So I'm in my 7th year. I have a much longer path as well, just because of the nature of where I want to take my career. I will be doing another like residency, which is like kind of another 5-ish years. But I don't know. Do you guys want to speak to your time?
So I was in school for 5 years. So I got a Bachelor of Science. I actually, what's not in my bio is I changed my mind 3 times on my degree. I was originally enrolled in a Bachelor of Music and then realized I wasn't going to make it as a jazz guitarist. So I switched into arts and then into science. But something that I want to pick up on, the president of this university, Peter, I can't remember his last name, but one of the things he was saying, and I really want to tell you that this is my experience too, going to university is going to change your life. Like everything that you've learned in the previous years up to grade 12, once you get to university, your world is going to get so much bigger. You're going to learn so much, and you're going to have possibilities in your life that you would have never imagined. See, and when I was in university, I got to go on an international exchange to Mexico, and I got to meet with Indigenous people there. And I created like a long-standing cultural link between my community and theirs. And I would never have had that had I had not gone to university. So it seems like a big investment of time, and it is, but it will seriously be some of the best years of your life.
We have a question here in the front. Yes.
Okay. I have a question for Andrea. You mentioned the pressure of responsibility that Indigenous people face for just to represent in post-secondary. And I was curious if you think that that's a huge deterrence, and if you do, then what steps could you take to help Indigenous students be more comfortable in that step to go into post-secondary?
That's a really great question. When I was talking about the difficulty that I ran into personally of not only carrying the mantle of being a Bachelor of Science student from my community, but the only one in my faculty, it is a lot of pressure. And I'm not going to downplay that. That's a real thing. It's a lot of pressure. You're going to be looked at differently than non-Indigenous students. But here's the great thing, is that there's all kinds of supports to help you with that. So yes, it's a lot of pressure. Yes, you may be the first person from your community studying a particular thing, or the first person in your family, but there are Indigenous student associations at every university in Canada, which I was telling you guys about earlier. There are mentorship programs where you can talk about that issue specifically, either within your university or with Inspire. That's the Rivers to Success program. And there are others who have gone this way before you. I spent a lot of time talking to my professors and talking to student advisors at my university to help me deal with that. But also, I had the support of my family and my community. So I was holding this heavy burden of being the first Indigenous student in the Faculty of Science, but my load was lightened knowing that I had the support of my community behind me, and you would too.
I love that community. Thank you so much for that great question. We have in the back there, we've got questions popping up all over the place. I love it. All right. Oh, we can use the mic just so we can hear you. Yay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Getting into the Inspire program, was there any very specific requirements to get in?
So I've been on the selection committee, so I've been a recipient and also on the jury. And so there is a criteria which they do outline. So basically you do have to provide proof of Indigenous ancestry. You do have to provide your education transcripts, so your latest grades. But the general criteria is that so basically it comes down to your grades, your community involvement, what else was there? Special circumstances, and your financial need. So those are kind of the general, and they basically break it out into 4 quadrants, and you're kind of assessed on those areas. So that's why I'm saying it's really important that you be honest. It is not a time to be modest. It is a time to really promote yourself and to stand out.
Awesome. And I know we have someone within the same row. Been so patient.
Did you ever wanted to drop out of university?
Ooh, good question.
I think everyone wants to win the lottery and not have to do anything. I don't know if I ever felt like I wanted to drop out. I think sometimes I felt very overwhelmed, and I think I did that to myself because I had such high expectations and high pressure on myself that you can very easily become overwhelmed and burnt out, I guess. So it's really kind of important that you surround yourself, like Andrea was saying, with really great people that support you. I don't think I ever wanted to drop out. I think maybe I kind of questioned if I was in the right place, if I was, in the right field, because you're kind of come into it at 17 thinking you know everything, and you don't. And so you kind of think, hey, maybe I should be a doctor, or maybe I should I don't know, be a psychologist, or maybe I will stick with accounting. I don't know. But that's the really great thing about university is that you're not locked in to anything. If you get a commerce degree, great, that's a great basis. If you want to change it up and become a doctor, you can do that. And like Andrea was saying, she changed like 3 times. So it's really just about making sure that you're at where you want to be.
Awesome. Thank you all for your amazing questions. Give a round of applause for yourselves. Yes. Wow, this has been amazing. Give it up again for Fauna, Josh, and Andrea. You know, you can go on to the Indspire website. They have their bios there and all the things that each of these laureates have done and are doing. And I know I'm fangirl because they are inspiring to me as well. And I hope it gave you an opportunity to dream big. Think about your futures as well. You all are in such amazing education topics, science, chartered accountant, medicine. It's so wonderful. So at this time, we're gonna, we're coming to a close, and I know they're getting we're done. But is there any quick things that, like, really quick that you want to say to the audience? Last final words, real quick.
So one thing that I want to leave you guys with, and it's a number. It's the number 27.7 billion. Now I'm going to explain to you what that means. If Indigenous people participated in education and the economy in Canada at the same rate as other Canadians, that would mean $27.7 billion annually go back into Canada's economy. So think about that. That's how important you are. That's how important this fastest growing demographic of Indigenous people in Canada is. So if you participate, if you go to school, if you participate in your communities, if you start a business, if you go after your dreams, you can be part of that $27.7 billion impact on Canada.
Biggest thing from me is continue to do the things that you really, really enjoy in life and that you're passionate about, okay? So whether that's sports, whether it's music, whether it's art, drawing, like even video games, those are sweet. If you love those and you're passionate about them, continue to do them and continue to do good things with them, okay? Grades, of course, are so important as well, but it's important to be a well-rounded person and do lots of other things outside of school. And even, for example, when applying to scholarships like Inspire, they look for things like that, okay? And then the last thing is, I want you to take the biggest and best thing that you think that you can be, that you want to be, when it's all said and done, and take that idea, take that seed, plant it in your head, and just run with it, okay? Do everything you can, because you're certainly more than capable of doing so, and Inspire is going to help you. They will help you. They're going to provide financial support to help get you through and help you achieve those dreams, okay? So I know something that Suzette has been saying lots is dream big, but like seriously, okay? Don't feel like there's anything you can't do. Take whatever you want to be and just keep fighting for that. Yeah.
Also one thing. Just like similar to that, I think when we all talk about our education journey and how we had support, I think it'd be really great if all of you in your family and your friends and your school, if you supported other people in their dreams and their achievements, because it's so easy to kind of say, it's easy to pull people down. But I think it'd be so much greater if all of you kind of built each other up and said, you know what, you want to be a doctor, you can be a doctor. You want to be an accountant, you can be a doctor. You can be an accountant. It's about supporting the people that are around you right now to be like, you know what, I have a really great support network and I have it right now. So that's my thing.
So be sure to go find them online, check out their website.